right, hello, welcome to Adventures in Lollygagging. We are playing Wondering today. The players have tried very hard to make me feel bad about myself and my age in the prep for this episode. They've been teasing me, saying how old. They've been keep telling me that there's a crypt keeper over my shoulder here and there, and someone's coming for me. And yeah.
That's just like remnants of Delta Green. That's not us.
I'm sorry that I'm a man who enjoys a little Peter Cetera. I'm very, very sorry.
I was just curious, like, why your green screen was messing up, because there's like a shadow looming over you.
That's all. Well,
Jeff,
death might be coming for me, but one thing I can say is that on my gravestone, not that I'll have one, but on my gravestone, I want, Melissa, you can mark this down. It's going to say, he did it all for the glory of love. That's what I want written or carved or whatever the hell they do on gravestones. So there you go. Yeah. Hey, so yeah, they've been making me feel really bad about myself. That's what it is. So anyway, time for a very depressing, very sad, very blood-soaked episode of Wondering as we say goodbye to these.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
So yeah, let's introduce who's playing, tell us about your character, etc., etc. We'll start with the least responsible person for what's about to go down today. Long, tell us about Floy.
Yeah, first to go Floy. He's a dwarf. I'm a treasure hunter, so hopefully there's a bunch of treasure coming. And he's gone from looking like just decrepit to nice and clean for this adventure.
Okay, I know you are very, very tidy, braided. I think you have braided beard now, new clothes. You're looking really good. And you immediately go on a 2-week adventure, traveling into the outback here. It's gonna be fantastic. All right, let's see. Next up, we have Gilly Kettlegrass. Ashley, tell us about Gilly.
I'm playing Gilly Kettlegrass, and I'm our Bree Hobbit, and I am very excited for our next adventure. Well rested. My parents taught me how to smoke a pipe, and I'm good to go.
God, this is the weirdest, the weirdest canon details were established in the past two episodes. This is the weirdest stuff. Oh my god.
That's how you can tell a campaign's in its later stages.
It's like just having fun, just being silly, like just picturing
the art of smoking, you know?
I'm just picturing you like what a couple people made a few jokes about how it's like, I think I'm really feeling it, Dad. It's like, Gilly, it's just tobacco.
Yeah.
So funny. Oh goodness. All right.
It's character development.
Yeah. Bottom row, we've got Aurinial. Melissa, you're almost as old as I am.
I know.
We're on our way out, but statistically speaking, I'm probably going to go first. So yeah, tell us about Aurinial.
Well, Aurinial is a spry 22. She is a Ranger of the North champion. She, switched out her snowshoes for a knife last time. Though there was a suggestion in chat of maybe a fishing pole or a fishing net or something like that might have been better. So we'll see if I rue that choice as we are near the lake. And
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure you wouldn't have used it for its actual proper use. You would have found some other way to do it. Yeah. Yeah, which is fine. Like, can I use
Jeff,
this?
we want a 2-hour fishing montage.
No, she'll be like,
I really wouldn't
use
mind
this fishing pole for this courtesy check? Can I do that? And like, they're fishermen. Like, I'm fisher person here. Can I get? That's what
I would allow that.
Yeah, that's fair. But
what if
it's the
horseshoe
wrong
game?
Oh, the horseshoe game.
I don't want to ever.
Like fishing.
The amount of work I put into that horseshoes game. Oh my god. I'm going to bust those out again. I'm going to convert them to Wondering.
That was so much fun. Because not only was it the horseshoes, it was
taunting.
The taunting.
Taunting was so good, yeah.
Because Long and I ended up playing it, and Long and I are the worst at let's improv taunts.
I'm also not good at that. So.
That was immediately following The beach scene where you
Yes.
watch a cult sacrifice like these
A
like young
baby.
teenagers, and you're all like, "Hey, that's cool. That's cool. Let's go play some horseshoes." Like that's stupid. This is an old campaign we're talking about. So stupid. So dumb. All right, and then they all got eaten or something later on, so it was fine. All right, and then lastly, we have our elven member of the party. Steven, tell us about Erebon.
Erebon is a child of Eru, elf of Linden, wanderer, outcast, warden. He's been exploring the northern areas for some time now until he got picked up like a stray dog by the fellowship here. He's been following along ever since.
You
Yeah.
have been adopted.
That is true. That is true.
You made sure I got rid of my fleas first, though.
So you're
Maybe
1134. Is that how old you are again?
1134, yeah,
1134.
just slightly older than you are in real life.
I know how important isolating the age of people is to you. I know you like to know what the number is so that you can then use that, weaponize it in some fashion. So there we go.
Me? No.
Yes.
I'm a very nice person, Jeff.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. That's yeah, okay. So anyhow, let's get into the summary. Let's kind of get into this. We have started on another adventuring phase. Very exciting. So a few months have passed since all of you have had your encounter with Rotag up in the north by the Etten Moors on the edge of Angmar. We had Yule, we had Durin's Day. You all separated for a bit. Went and visited some places to sort of rejuvenate in some way, whether that was seeing your family or whether it was just wandering and having some alone time. Whatever it was, you all separated, but fate brought you back together again. Rumors as well that have come out of the North Farthing in the Shire that apparently there have been some strange folk, or there were strange folk that were spotted along the frozen waters of Lake Evendim, and apparently around the potentially ruinous city of Anominas. And you guys know that there's basically, you have some basic history of those places, but essentially you know that it was once kind of the capital of like the northern kingdom of men, and then it's fallen to ruin, and there might be treasures and artifacts and such. So I think the theory is that these might be some of those Rodawan hill folk. And so all of you decided to sort of investigate. You talked a little bit with Talendil and Marimbem, which they told you of a village called Eskerdale, hidden somewhere in the northern shores of Lake Evendim, in the hills of Evendim. And although it's kind of a village that doesn't much consort with outsiders, if anybody is to have known anything about who might have been traversing this land, it would be them. So you all decided you were going to head on a journey there. Now, along the way, you found a broken cairn on the Greenway near Fornos, and inside of it, a poor dead soul a tomb robber, it seems, had been killed by a wraith. The rest of you were then ambushed by this wraith. You managed to fight it off, and then you left. You kind of reset the cairn stones a bit, so no poor, unsuspecting individual might fall and run into similar issues. You passed over the plains where some of the combined armies of Linden elves and soldiers from Gondor, the remnants of the Dunedain, fought with the armies of Angmar, fairly familiar place for one reason or another with Erebon. And then while preparing to camp one night near the banks of the Brandywine, you all saw kind of a strange sight. You saw this small ashen boat, kind of this sort of dark ashy wood, these strange etchings on the gunwale. You saw this eerie figure had like cloaks of shadow that were like whipping around it, and there were individuals that were rowing as well, and you watched for a bit, and as you did, like nausea, disorientation kind of swept over you all, kind of this sudden sense of unease, and eventually it abated, but only when that boat kind of curved around this wide bend in the river and headed west in the direction of Lake Evendim. So we're going to pick up right there, but with one quick note. One of the things we forgot to do last session was assign travel fatigue based upon the first two journey events. So I have done that on your sheets. All of you should be at 4 travel fatigue, so it was 2 for each. You did pass your various journey event tests, so there wasn't any additional penalty, but those were just sort of the flat penalties for that. So we're going to pick up. The boat has just departed your vision. The nausea, the unease, the strange whispers that were sort of assaulting some of your ears has abated. Does anyone want to do anything?
This is.
I'd like to take a look at Floyd and see if this is affecting him at all with his, priors that he's got.
His priors. Oh, that's the wrong one. We're not playing Delta Green. What am I doing? Okay. So yeah, you look over at Floyd and you don't see any. I mean, much like everybody else, he has kind of this sort of pale, sickly look, like the colors coming back to his cheeks. All of you had that moment of this momentary sense of dread. But it doesn't appear that he looks any different or better or worse than anybody else.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. No offense, Floyd.
Admiring the wares, I see.
What was that? I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Admiring the wares.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to admire. I really like how you braided your beard. It looks really unique.
Why are you guys talking about Floyd's beard? Did you guys not see the weird ghost ship?
It felt awful.
Remember when with like the wraith in the barrows? My lantern turned green, and that lantern was green.
That's true.
Perhaps this undertaking was foolhardy. Maybe we should turn around.
We have not come this far just to go back.
No, but it does mean we should
Be careful, right?
definitely be careful.
Yeah.
Definitely gather some information about our foe here.
Agreed. We should
Jeff is
always.
rolling dice, and I am
always be
extremely
cautious.
nervous.
But this is
Stop.
nighttime, right?
Yes, it is nighttime. You guys are setting up camp when this happened. You're a little bit away from the bend in the river. The river is not like extraordinarily wide, but it's wide enough, and it's deep enough that it's not the type of you would have to sort of travel for literally hours up or down to try to find a way to cross it. Like the way mechanically in game works, like when you're plotting your course, plotting your journey, you do have to account for the fact that there are rivers. It's not just like you easy mode across. Like you have to look for bridges, or you have to find some other means to get across, that kind of thing. So it's not an extraordinarily wide at this point. This is a fairly heavy bend, and you are we're sort of up on a ridge looking across at it. There was a little bit of light, this sort of pale, sickly, flickering light that was hanging from a lantern. Again, it had like these sort of black sails. It almost seemed like they were full of wind, but they doesn't really feel that way. But there were also looked like there were individuals that were rowing at the same time beneath the gunwale, hidden kind of shadows here and there, and that kind of drew your attention. But
Perhaps it would be prudent if we moved away from shore to camp.
Yeah. Gilly would like to do like a lore check about like black sailed ships and Animas, or however you say it. How do you say it? Anominus. Thank you.
Minus. It's like Minas Tirith. And then you just do Anu. I don't know. I'm not like an expert or anything.
More than me.
Jeff, we know you sleep with a Silmarillion under your pillow.
Time out. I do have it right here, though. It's
Yep,
within reach.
At all
So,
times.
Yeah. Yep. When Melissa and I got married, that's what we had to do, whatever on. Okay. Anyway, you want to do a lore test on black sails and stuff? I I don't want you to roll if
good.
I'm not going to give you anything, so
Okay.
I'm going to say no on this just because there's really nothing to give you if
Okay.
you were to succeed. You could, I mean, if you want, I'll let you roll. I can't. I think we did some basic rolls on background on some things. I'll say go ahead and roll a lore test, but I'm not necessarily going to give you anything specific on black sails or anything. But I might give you something on Illuminas.
Okay. Just a basic success.
Okay, so I mean, in your reading of Oswald Breaker's pages in his library back in Coombe, the only real information you can think of that kind of comes into play when you think of Anuminas in like ships and ghost ships and stuff like that, there are kind of like these tales, these folk tales, these folklore of the tower, well, like the sort of the tall western tower of Anuminas, and there have been stories told by travelers and treasure hunters that some people say that if you were to climb to the top of the tower and look upon the shores of Lake Evendom on a starry, moonless night, you could potentially see the twilight ships, is what they're kind of referred to as. Now, they're referenced as like ghostly ships, but there's no reference specifically to them being like black sails, or there's no references to some feeling of unease. You're not sure if it's the same thing, and you're not actually near the town yet, or the ruins of the city. You're about 100 miles away. So, but that's the only thing you can think of when it comes to that. So, but that is the legend, like the idea if you climb to the tower, you might see a vision of something.
So Gilly will take the time, now that we're all kind of like properly spooked and we're still around like the campfire, and she'll kind of flip through her journal to like find like a note where maybe she referenced it, and she'll tell them like the story of that.
Okay, sounds good. And you do know that one of the few places that actually is above water regularly throughout the year is the Western Tower. So this is something that people, like even of late, like whether it's true or not, who knows?
Yeah.
Are we still going to camp tonight and maybe just move a little bit more inland per Erebon's suggestion?
That could be a good idea.
That's easily enough done. Yeah.
When we move more inland, I also will offer to take watch the majority of the night, since I don't need to sleep as much anymore. I will just do my elvish meditation as I walk slowly around the camp.
Okay. All right. Is anyone else doing anything this eve before you kind of pass in for the night?
Can I do like a basic like awareness check of our surroundings?
Looking for dangers and things? Yeah, sure. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Great success.
Looking around, you know that like especially with your studying of the maps and stuff that you did beforehand, you know that you guys are basically camping on like these plains, or just on the edge of these plains, where like this major battle occurred between like the forces of elves and men and the armies of Angmar, right? Like you are literally on the plains where this sort of occurred. And while there's no clear apparent danger of anything like attacking you, you don't see any signs of like orcs or goblins, or there is a general sense of unease for sure. And like there's, despite the fact that it's springtime, like the night gets much colder than you would have anticipated. Maybe it's just that you're traveling further north than Bree, but you do feel like in your chest this sense of like a coolness take over. And I would say everyone to some degree feels that as well. So there's probably some concern over doing anything to, like, anything that might sort of desecrate or denigrate the sort of the lives that were lost here, and who knows what other strange things might haunt the plains. But you look around and you don't see anything in terms of immediate danger. You do hear the sounds of, like, kind of howling somewhere deep in the distance, like it's not anywhere nearby, and you think they're probably wolves. But it's really hard to tell, as, like, in the night, the winds kind of flip around here and there, and sometimes the howls sound different. Like, they're not just the same types of wolves and wargs that you've seen before. Could be something else. Could be your imagination. Could be the lingering impression that encounter along the river might be playing tricks on your mind.
Renil would just like to do a little hunting just to make sure we've got plenty of food for our rest of our journey.
Yeah, go ahead and roll a hunting test.
Success.
Yeah, you do find along the riverbank there are, like, small game and stuff that are sort of, it's easy enough to kind of catch something here or there. Nothing too extravagant, hares and whatnot, but no issues whatsoever. Nothing too plump, and nothing that's going to last for a significant period, but it'll certainly do for the night and do for the morn, and then travel begins again.
Okay.
So morning will come, unless there's anything people are looking to do in the night, but morning will come. When you wake up, there's kind of a mist over the area. You can see it especially over the water when you look off to the west a bit. You can see that it's a fairly desolate place. Like, when you look north, like, there's very flat ground for a significant period of time. Far to the east, you can see the peaks of the ruins of Fornos, like, kicking up over top of the mist, and a few of you who have been there you recognize some of, like, this reflective light of that domed building that the three of you, before you met Erebon, had journeyed beneath. But otherwise, it's an easy morning. Eriniel has food for you. You do get a good night's sleep. Nothing attacks you in the night, and you can continue your journey. Floy, I would need a travel test then.
Got it.
Eyes peeled towards the river, of course.
1 success.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you keep your eyes peeled, Eriniel, towards the river. Gilly, you keep an eye out for those wolves or whatever they were that were howling. I'm not sure if Erebon is lost in thought at seeing the grounds that you've traveled before. But Floy, you do manage to kind of chart a path. You use the river. It's not too difficult, judging from the maps that Gilly was able to study beforehand. You can kind of get a decent bearing, sort of a west-northwesterly. You veer slightly away and further northward away from the river the further west you go. The next day or two of travel is fairly uneventful. I need the lookout. I believe this is Gilly. Go ahead and roll awareness test.
Okay. Automatic success, thank God.
Okay. Yeah, that was a really bad roll. Okay. So, as you're settling down, like after a couple days, you sort of look around and you realize that you guys can move your token, by the way, to essentially the peak of the river, or the peak of the lake, the very top part of the lake where there's some trees and such too. You look around and you realize you don't see Gilly. The mist was, that morning was a little bit more than you bargained for, but everyone was there at breakfast. But you look around and you don't find Gilly. And as you call out names, trying to, get echolocation, you're trying to get call and response.
Marco.
Gilly, you do hear them. You just kind of separate themselves. Yeah. And right as you hear the sound of Erebon calling out some strange, must be an elvish word for
Elvish,
where
for
are
sure.
you? Yeah, it's totally elvish. You stop. And as you do, you look around and you can see the tallness of Eryniel and Erebon coming towards you. The mist starts to sort of move off to the side. This veered you off course for a little bit more further northward than you intended. And you realize, Gilly, as the mist kind of parts, that you're on top of what looks like some kind of escarpment. Then if you would have taken literally one more step, you would have fallen down probably about a 30-foot ridge, and you can see that it kind of slopes away and downward, if not for Erebon calling out. Now, you also realize, as the four of you are standing up here, that you're looking, like, not only could you have fallen, but that you could have just literally keened right over, and there's these kind of heavy rocks below, sharp in some manner. And you can see, like, there is, like, the remnants and residue of what looks like something that destroyed the vegetation here. There's a long plain of grass, and you can see bushes and things sprouting up. But then there's a clear and utterly barren patch that's probably about a quarter mile in diameter. And it's just like this pure dark gray dirt. And it's not like quite a perfect circle, but it's got this relative radius around it. And almost to like a foot or an inch or so, like there's just nothing growing inside of it. And you can see the edges where the vegetation is popping up, where there's, flowers and other things that are popping up around it. But you look around and you realize you kind of got off course in the mist for a bit, and you've kind of trudged up this ridge. All of you can go ahead and kick up your fatigue an extra 2, as the last couple of days battling, constantly weaving about in the mist a bit, has been troubling. But Gilly, no shadow points for you, as you made an ill choice to kind of wander off to the north by yourself. But luckily, you were aware enough to hear the sounds of your allies calling you.
Goodness gracious.
Eryniel, because Gilly is her fellowship focus, when she doesn't respond to Erebon's call, Eryniel is definitely going to kind of also be like, Gilly, where are you? Gilly?
Oh, Sweetgrass. As she steps back from like just dangerous plummet to her death. And she's like, it's hard to see over this mist, okay? I'm not quite as tall as you guys. And
Have you forgotten our travels through the Entmores? The mist, we must stay together.
Okay, well, that time you tied us all up together or gave us the rope. We didn't have that this time. So, as she's trudging back to the group.
Maybe we should and so Eryniel will start to we were working on some songs, so like maybe we should just kind of stay in contact with each other, and so just kind of start like humming so that we are all like in audio range of each other, even if we can't see each other through the mist.
Yeah, I mean, aren't we like pretty close by to where we needed to be? We're looking for that village, right?
We are. We haven't found it yet, though.
So
is there anything to go kind of look at with what she kind of almost stumbled into, like to safely get down there? Like, is there anything to like investigate?
Yeah, you can climb
further?
down. It just looks like a big barren kind of circular field, but yeah, you can climb back down. Now that the mist is sort of separating as the morning heat kind of comes in, yeah, you can go down there and look if you like.
Yeah, I just want to take a peek, see what's there.
Sure. As you kind of move about, go ahead and roll a scan.
Oh no, that's not something I'm good
Sorry.
No.
at.
Scan is about finding hidden things.
Well, yeah. All right, I'm gonna take one. We've got leftovers from last time, so I'm gonna take one.
Isn't that convenient? Go ahead. Type something in chat.
And still fail, because
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, you travel across this sort of big kind of gray dirt. You look for signs of anything, whether you can see them, hear them, feel them. Just looks like ruinous dirt. You return to the group as they're waiting for you. It probably took you maybe an extra 45 minutes, hour or so to do this. But you return, having not found anything.
Thought maybe, but nothing. Just that sight last night's kind of cut me off my I don't know, just can't really settle in and use all my senses quite like I would want to. So guess let's keep going.
Okay. So you continue west. You can see now the lake extends off to the south below you. You are slightly elevated. You can see. So it looks like the northern shores. There's like kind of a forested ridgeline. Hills begin to extend further westward. You all are doing your little humming here and there, singing. And Erebon, as you're traveling, and as you kind of hear the songs of your compatriots, you realize something or someone is harmonizing with you.
oh, don't like that. Would I be able to? Is it coming from a specific direction?
Well, I mean, you're gonna have to look for that. So, what do you want to do? Awareness, I think.
I will stop walking first and kind of cock my head. Do the rest of you hear that? And then, yeah, I'll roll awareness.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And at Erebon stopping and pointing it out, you do notice, actually. Erebon, you look off to the north with your automatic success, and
Always a bad roll.
You see a copse of trees. As you look off maybe 50, 100 feet away, this beautiful trees, actually. And
I've always been
lush.
attracted to trees.
They're lush, green, vibrant in a way that some of the other trees around here seem a little bit more gnarled, crooked. But there's this copse of trees that's just sort of kind of grown in this almost like a perfect ring. You see that in the center of it from this distance, there's some kind of open clearing, a handful of rocks, maybe a pond at the center of it. You get this sense that that's where the sound's coming from. Maybe you do some tests between someone humming and you can hear sort of like this very faint harmonization coming from those trees.
Well, that looks nice. That's not very threatening. After cocking my head and pinpointing the location, I'll just start walking towards the trees without saying anything to the rest of the group.
Okay. You all see this.
And we all could catch the echo.
Yeah, which
And
like
the
is
harmonization,
this sort of, it was like a lingering harmonization. Like you were doing your hum, and then as you stop, like seconds later, like the second track was just on a longer fade than your own.
Well, we did just have a conversation about everyone sticking together, so Erniel will follow Erebon.
Okay. So
You got a little side trick though, Ereniel. Going down the canyon.
Yes.
I know. She's such a hypocrite. Steven, I have to deal with this all the time at home. You have no idea.
I'm
man.
just teasing you.
I
That's
feel it.
fine.
Okay. So you see Erebon and then Ereniel follows. Floy, Gilly, what are you two doing?
Yeah, I'll turn and trail behind as well.
Yeah, and Gilly's just still humming as she's coming up.
Okay. So yeah, you can see that there's maybe, you start to count, looks like there's about 12.5 trees all in this circle, and it's a perfect ring as you walk up to it. And when you look around the rest of the forest that you've kind of just breached the exterior of, right, there's nothing, everything is grown in like this haphazard fashion as you would expect in nature. And you see this copse, and it's too perfect. And when you kind of step through the exterior ring of these trees, there's this beautiful, soft, very vibrant green grass that's extended out from the roots of these trees towards a rocky pond in the center. And as you step through, you also hear the sounds of like winds whipping through the upper branches. And it's like, now it's actually almost sort of singing and taking the sort of the melodic lead on the songs that you've been singing in a way that you wouldn't expect the randomization of wind blowing through. It's like almost purposeful, intentional in a way that normally wind, despite being very beautiful and calming to listen to, like this is more. This almost seems, it certainly seems peculiar, but not necessarily like haunting in a way. You also notice, Gilly, I'm going to give you this, obviously. There are white flowers growing at the base of every one of these trees. Several of them.
Oh.
Blooming beautifully.
And at the sight of him, Gilly will kind of like gasp and just kind of stop and be like, This must be some sort of graveyard?
What makes you say that?
The white flowers.
Jeff, I wouldn't have normally come this far northwest when I'm wandering around. Would I have heard anything about these woods, of anything to note about this?
Roll a lore test. Great success. Yes, you would know that when the full force from the Grey Havens, the Lord of Linden, Curden, Shipwright, and the remnants of the Dunedain kind of marched northward, they had sort of this huge force of Gondorian, with them. The battle was fought on the plains between kind of here and Fornost, right? But there were, when the armies kind of broke and scattered, there were different groups of the Angmar forces that tried to flee. Some fled eastward with the Witch King. Others fled northward, some southward, some westward. And so you would probably have some basic reason to believe that if anyone was going to try to chase down fleeing foes going off into the wilds, into the forests, that it would likely be some of those Linden elves. And when you see just the sort of reverence of, and then like the beauty of this place, you hear Gilly mentioning, the simple mind, the white flowers here, and probably with some of your other travels, like you would probably conclude that some elves fell here in battle, and this was sort of somehow marked by their graves or by their floating.
I definitely want to continue forward then to pay my respects.
Sure. Floy, Gilly, Iriniel, what are you doing?
I'll stick close by, careful not to desecrate the land at all.
Sure.
Airbon, is it appropriate for us to be here?
As an elf, would I know that?
There's nothing, as long you're not doing anything to desecrate this place. Like you're treating it with reverence.
Yeah.
And actually, there's there's a sense of melancholy, but kind of a, it's whereas like seeing that figure on the river filled you with unease, and nausea. There's like a peacefulness to it. At the same time, you all probably feel the calmest you've been in several days. You've had a fight with a wraith. You had some strange encounter along the riverbank. This is probably almost calming some of the anxiety that might have been building up to some degree.
Treat this place with respect, and you shall find no harm.
And Gilly will be like, well, they probably haven't had visitors in a while. So she'll go over to like a different tree away from everybody with like a bush, and she'll kind of sit down next to it and have her book out. And then she'll start, it feels silly, but she'll start talking to the tree like, well, my name's Gilly Kettlegrass. And she'll just start going on about her adventures with her friends.
As you talk to the tree, you hear the pitch of the wind going through the leaves above the boughs that are hanging above you shift and change. Now there's nothing to really, justify, but it almost probably feels to some degree like it's replying to you, like nature, the tree itself, the wind, whatever embodies this place is somehow responding to you. But it's doing so in a way that sounds light and lovely, and it doesn't. Again, you feel at peace here.
Yeah.
Erebon would continue walking through the trees and would slip into his elvish meditation.
Sure.
And he would change tunes to a different elvish song, one a little bit more sorrowful rather than the one that we were seeing before. And just whether it's actually conscious or not, he's just going to let his mind drift and think about who might be buried here and things like that. Just, whether it's made up in his own head or he would actually know, some people that fell in this area. He would just want to just spend a few minutes to pay his respects and remember them.
Okay. Floy and Iriniel, are you doing anything in particular?
No, I'll just let them do their thing. Keep out watch.
Riniel would, similar to the other two, just sort of find an area kind of away from them and just kind of continue just humming and just seeing if there's any kind of response.
And very similar to Gilly, you get that kind of, like, there's a shift in tone here and there, whereas from a distance it was just harmonizing with you. Now within the ring, it almost seems like it's trying to complement, like, the sounds that you're making in some way. Erebon, as you're sitting here and you're going through your Elvis meditation, as you're trying to recall or pay homage to who might have fallen here, the sort of sorrowful dirge begins to unfold from your mouth as you hum. You see that a burst of wind cuts through the branches above you, and this massive scattering of leaves comes flickering down into the middle of the ring. And almost all of them, the vast majority of these leaves, just fall on top of the pond. And when you see the the water itself is just now coated almost entirely with these leaves, but these small little flecks of water can kind of pierce through these little gaps here and there, but all of them just sort of fall down on top of the water.
I'll definitely move up to the water's edge, take a look.
Yeah, and you notice that at the base of this pond, which is crystal clear, you can see that there are numerous smooth rocks that have, at the base itself, you don't even really see dirt at the bottom, and you can see that there is elvish runes that are carved on them here and there. And as you start going through them and like looking at each individual rock itself, you realize that they contain names, stories, songs of elven warriors and bards and craftsmen, and even the mention of a Dunedain, all who died here.
How deep is this pond?
Oh, 2 feet, 3 feet maybe.
Yeah, I'll start wading through and I'll be looking at every single rock.
Sure.
No offense to you guys, but I'm not going to be saying anything to you. I just am going to be spending as much time as possible to look through all these runes, trying to find all the names possible, seeing if any of them seem familiar to me. And if one does seem familiar to me, I'll take a few moments, but there's definitely a specific name I'm looking for that we've talked about.
Sure. All of you watch him do this, of course. And you start going through and you're looking for names. Now you all counted 14 total trees. Like it was just over a dozen as you kind of came in this ring. And you notice as you're going through these stones at the base of this pond, you find the names of 14 people, 13 of whom are elves, one of whom is a Dunedain, but seems to have been given a Sindarin name. You look specifically for the name of your friend, and you do not find it. But likely you do find a name or two that is familiar to you. There's a name called Maildor, who probably, well, I don't. You can sort of determine how close that you want to make them. But you know that Maildor was a Fletcher, made bows for quite some time. Lived in Linden, and sort of on the western side, obviously, of the Blue Mountains. You know that Helvion is another one. He worked for Curtin. He was a shipbuilder, carpenter of some kind. And so these are two names that probably stand out to you.
What was the second one? I'm sorry.
Helvion. How well you know them is entirely up to you.
They would probably just be more like passing acquaintances.
Sure.
Because I was still fairly young when the Battle of Fornost happened.
Yep.
So I would have been, in like my apprenticeship time, and I would have looked up to them, but I wouldn't have been very familiar with them.
Okay.
I would go through and I'd look at each stone and try to just memorize their names. You said there was a Dunedain, and
there is indeed.
Do you have what was his name?
I do actually have it. It's actually Estelle Mistor. And you would know
I knew you had it, or you wouldn't have.
I had it ready to go, buddy. It was it sort of translates to something like brother of lost hope, something like that.
Sounds like my kind of guy.
Figured you would dig them.
To each name, I would pick it up and I'd rub my thumb over the runes and try to memorize both the name and the feel of the rune under my finger.
Absolutely.
And I would say to each stone, Heroine Edith Abweneth, may they find peace after death. And I would go through this little ritual for each stone before coming out and putting my boots back on and preparing to leave.
As you go through each one of these stones, and the rest of you as well probably would do this, you would hear like a breeze would cut through one specific tree, and it would actually have like the whistling in the branches would be localized to that one specific tree each time Erebon picked up and said his small kind of prayer basically for each individual name. And this would happen one after the other.
After the first one, Gilly would pop up. Erebon, are those their names?
Their names, their lives, their memories.
And she'll kind of nod, and she plans to ask you about that later because she doesn't want to interrupt any further at this point.
Fair enough. Anybody else?
Iridial wanted to respect his space in doing that, and so she would kind of stay away, but sort of walk over to Floy and just kind of just ponder. So there was such loss that happened during those times, and we are doing what we can, but I fear such places like this may be yet again in our future if we are not successful. So a lot of responsibility for us to try to avoid such things.
Avoid the area, you mean, or like avoid the death?
Just more places of death like this.
I see it's quite honorable. However, the elves worship or like honor their deaths.
Mm-hmm. I hope we can make some effect to maybe avoid some of this. But Auriniel's definitely kind of melancholy at the weight of what we're trying to hold back, and this is the result of forces in the world.
How long do you all stay here?
For me, it
Up to
would.
Airborne. So I'll like go when he's ready.
I would probably take 5 to 10 minutes for each stone, so it would be a while.
Yeah, an hour or two maybe. Sure.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay. As you're leaving, kind of departing.
As we leave, Gilly asks Erebon, she pays attention to the wind that goes through the tree that she's talking to. She wants to ask who their name is.
Jeff, what were the other 11 names?
I have every name ready to go.
No, it's fine. I would, since I did my best to memorize them, I would just list their names in the order that I found their stone. Not alphabetical or anything, but just the first stone, second stone, third stone. And I would
one that Gilly specifically like references, like when the sound comes and stuff like that. It's actually Maethian, which is daughter of battle.
Okay, well, before Gilly leaves, she's like, well, it was a pleasure to meet you, Maethian. Thanks.
Maya, like Maya.
Maethian.
Because she wouldn't know who you're talking to. She'd get very upset at that point. And
Gilly
you
has
see like
better-
a couple leaves just sort of like flicker down and just sort of land in your hair a bit, like these beautifully bright green leaves just sort of land in Gilly's hair. Almost like
thank you.
adornments.
And she's like, I'll treasure this, and then she'll add that to her book.
Okay. As you all leave, every one of you go ahead and roll a d6. Wow.
big numbers.
2.
Wow.
Why is mine coming up as company?
That's
Oh, yeah, but selected.
It's because that's what's selected.
Yeah,
The only
because you're on the
token.
company.
The only
map.
token on the screen is the company token.
All right,
Oh.
mine must be 1 then. If Floyd's just a 2.
Okay, so Gilly, did you roll?
My dice was pink. It was the 2. I don't know.
All right, mine's
Okay.
1 then. I have no idea.
And then I guess yours didn't roll.
I guess
Reneel,
mine
go ahead
didn't go
and roll again.
through.
Yeah,
All
roll,
right.
roll again. Restore that amount of hope, as despite the sadness, there was this, each one of you step from this copse of trees, and there's a sense of melancholy and seriousness amongst you all as you leave, but there's also this notion that, imbued within the land around you there is hope here. These people fell, but at the same time, the battle was won. Witch King, the armies of Angmar were pushed back, and that something about the land still being here to sort of lend this kind of support probably instills a slight bit of hope. So nothing too grandiose as indicated by the rolls, but it does feel a little bit better.
I was only missing one hope anyways.
Well, there you go. So now you're back to your classically well-known hope-filled Erebon.
Yes.
Mr. Positive.
Gilly, as we finish going over the list of names, I assume that you were writing down each one.
Yes. Yeah.
I would mention after that, a few days ago when we were near where the battle happened, that great tragedy left a scar that I'm sure you felt as well as I. But just as the land remembers those tragedies, the land remembers the good people. And that is what we were feeling just now.
And Gilly
We should
just-
write that down. And then I'll walk away.
Just like,
You can quote me on that.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. You can quote that.
Okay. So you leave the copse of trees, you get back on your journey, you get back within sight of the lake, and you continue westward. You a little bit further. You can kind of shift yourselves a little further over into the trees themselves, kind of at the base of the hills, and you know now that you are in the vicinity. So our journey is effectively over as we've reached the location that because you all were going to a vague location. And so we can now sort of do our end of journey stuff. So let's go back into this. Let me pull up the rules really quick to make sure I get that accurate. So, all right. So all of you, I think, should have 6 travel fatigue right now. Is that correct? It was 2, 2, and 2 each time. It was pretty simple.
Yeah.
6.
Okay. So what you can do now is, since you've sort of reached where you're at, we determine how much of that travel fatigue sticks. So Floy and Gilly, I know you have ponies. Do you consider, are you like riding these some of the time, or are you using them more like like just carrying your equipment and things like that? You know what? Don't even answer that. You can use them. Forget it. Don't even worry about that. Okay, so
I don't think pack too much.
So if you're riding or using a mount, so you two have your ponies, you can subtract the mount's vigor rating from your fatigue total.
Oh, I did not.
I have a prosperous horse. Do you know the amount for that?
I'll look it up. I promise I will look it up in just one
Cut
second.
it out.
How's everybody doing tonight? Let's see.
Fantastic.
Okay, so all right, so you have a prosperous that has a
Yeah.
vigor of 2. So Floy, you can just reduce yours down to 4. Gilly, what do you have?
I don't think it's prosperous.
Probably common, I would think, because you're because you're not poor, right? You're common.
No,
right?
I'm common.
Okay, so there would be 1. You have a common horse.
Okay.
It is an old horse or a half-starved pony, and Floy has a decent beast. That's what it says in here.
Yeah, I know. I remember.
Okay. All right, so that's first step. Then all of you, each one of you, make a travel test.
I need to put more points.
And we
in
do
travel.
I'm an
have
expert at this.
we do have some D6s if anybody wants them.
Okay. For a guy who wanders and travels all over the place, you suck at travel, Airbud.
I usually travel at my own pace, you know. Having people with pack horses kind of throws me off.
That's fair. Okay. So
My
it looks
5
like the only
fatigue
person
sticks.
the only person who passes is Aurenial. So Aurenial, you only had you had 1 success, that's it. So you can reduce your travel fatigue by 1.
Okay.
Okay. So that, I believe, and then everybody else, it sticks is what it's at. So Floy and Gilly, you should be at 2 because Floy, you should be at 2. Gilly and Aurenial, you should be at 3. Erebon, you should be at 4. So that's how much like the journey has weighed on you all. So that's what you have.
I am losing some because I was at 6.
Oh, you were at 6. My bad. Yeah. So
So I should stay at 6, right?
Cycle it back. So Floy, you lost 2, so you went down to 4, but then you failed the travel roll, so you stick at 4.
Yeah,
Gilly,
I'm at 5.
You went down 1 to 5, and you failed your travel roll. Aurenial, you don't have a pony, but you did pass your travel roll, so you're at 5. And Erebon, you are at 6, and so that's what you're all at. Okay.
Yep.
Now,
I mean, I'll take the 4.
I know you would. I know you would. So keep that in mind because that does affect, weariness and load and all that kind of stuff. And then, and remember, if you take prolonged rests in a sheltered, safe area, you can recover 1 point of fatigue per day. So, overall, that took, like, the journey to where you all are at took, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now it's about a 9-day travel. It's been a little over a week since you all left Bree. So you got to camp down one night, and you wake up in the morning, knowing that you have some searching to do. You know that this is a hidden village. It's a village that isn't on any sort of major trade path. It doesn't do proper trade. It's very isolated, insular. And from the sounds of what Talendale and Marimbum said, they're somewhat untrustworthy, and it might take some time to sort of locate. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a skill endeavor to see if you can locate them, or how quickly. So you are in the general vicinity, because you've reached that little red marker there on the map. The resistance is 6. It's set at 6 already. The skills that are most likely to use here are Explore, Hunting, Riddle, and Scan. I'm always willing to listen to other ways of looking for this, as long as it makes sense. It's possible you might take a minus, a penalty on it, depending on how good the justification is. So you basically start the day fresh, after having slept, having seen the mist cover the lake itself. You are elevated above the lake. You can see quite far out, but you notice in the morning and at night, and even during the day, there is still like these lingering kind of clouds of fog that swirl around. The lake itself is like 20 miles ish across either way. You can tell by the map that it has kind of an odd configuration, but it's a very, very large lake here, so you can't necessarily see all the way across. But the mist that comes through does make it a little bit more difficult to see, and the water is strangely calm. Like you see very little in the way of current, and even when the wind sweeps down, you don't really see ripples in the water as much, though the mist still kind of moves over it. There is a very odd feeling to the area, like this sense of foreboding. Like you feel almost like a humidity kind of weight on your shoulders as you pass by, and as you camp here, compared to that ring of fallen elves in Dunedain, this place has a much heavier feel to it. So resistance of 6, time, the time limit itself, this is basically how quickly we can do it. So how would you all go about trying to locate the village?
Let's see.
Well, since they're kind of isolated, they probably have to do some of their own farming. Like they don't get crops and stuff from like a nearby city or anything. So Gilly might start looking for like tended land.
Okay. What do you want to use for that?
Could I do like awareness or scan?
Awareness wouldn't apply. That's more for trying to detect danger.
Danger. Okay.
Scan would apply though.
Okay, yeah.
You're looking for kind of signs of like hidden tended land, groves of, maybe fruit trees or something like that. Anything that suggests that someone's been kind of that it's not just wild
like tending
land.
to it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're on the same page.
And she'll pull out her lantern to like help her like look up at plants and stuff.
It is bright though. It's not like nighttime.
I still failed.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah. You're in a mixture. You're in very like forested hills. Mm-hmm. You can see that at the very peaks of the hills, as you kind of go further and further up, the trees tend to sort of thin out, and the tops of these hills themselves become a little rockier and a little sparse. But as you weave about the forest looking for any signs of tended land, you don't notice anything, actually. You think back and what Talendale and Marimbum said, that they mainly live off, fishing the lake and hunting the hills and things like that. You do at one point, though, find like this series of these interconnected streams that you're maybe hoping, following some of the streams, the water might lead you to some kind of tended land. Because like if there's farms or if there's gardens, you would need water, something to irrigate. So you follow that for a bit, but all that ends up happening is that you and who do you have, Beat or you Root? I always get them confused. Who's your
I have
pony?
Root. Or no,
You
I have Beat, right?
You don't even
I didn't
know
write
the
it
name
down.
of
No,
your own
mine is
pony.
Beach. How dare
Yeah, I
you?
was gonna say.
How
I was like,
dare
I
you.
have Root.
Yours is the emaciated, dying, haven't been fed in a while horse because Gilly.
Why do you
is too
think she wants
busy.
to trade ownership?
Gilly spends all her coin on the leaf now, so she can't afford feed for poor Root. You do end up getting stuck inside like this sort of quagmirely area where all these different streams kind of interconnect and they disappear underground. You're never in any sort of real danger in the process, but you get kind of muck on your clothes, on your boots. Poor Root gets stuck for a while, and it takes a good half day just to kind of get him out of there before he sinks too far where he could potentially come to some kind of trouble.
Ooh.
But you're able to eventually kind of get him out. But it is basically about a good 5-6 hours of wasted time kind of trying to follow these streams and then having to work Gilly out of the problem. All right. Who's next? As you are no closer to finding this hidden village.
So one of Renneel's go-tos is that she always wants to see if she's ever in an area that she can like climb the tallest tree and try to get like a vantage point that's up. Like she's pretty athletic. She's pretty good at climbing up. So she's always wanting to find out if there's anything in the area that's a little bit taller than the rest that she could kind of work her way up. And
Okay. What are you thinking of using here?
athletics.
Athletics to climb up.
Yeah.
I mean, that'll get you up the tree. I still would probably want like either a scan or explore to contribute to actually seeing something while you're up here.
But what about her fishing pole?
She didn't bring it. We talked about that.
Yeah.
Nice
My
try.
skinning knife. I realized that a spyglass or something spyglass like would have been ideal to bring, but I did not.
I feel like a spyglass would be kind of. I mean, you're a poor, frugal Dunedain, or not Dunedain, Ranger of the North. Would you have a spyglass? I don't know. Those feel like those would be a little pricier. Floyd for sure would probably be able to get that.
Well, yeah. This
Yeah,
is
I
true.
can get 2 of them.
One for each eye. Woo.
He makes
Hopefully,
the first binoculars.
He puts the other one the opposite way, just for fun. He puts one after the other so you can see super far.
so a Renneel
still
being
think
left
an
with just her
explorer's
eyes. Okay, that's fine. Hopefully her eyes are better than mine are. She can
Yeah,
see things.
roll the athletics test. We'll see how well you do getting up.
Okay.
With
Great
a great
success.
success, we'll say you can get you find it's a crooked tree, but one that's easily climbable, but quite tall, and you're able to get to a very, very, very high height. We'll give you a bonus on your roll to scan or explore. You can choose.
Okay. Is there any way bold can come into play with this at all? So I can
I
Burn
mean,
hope.
bold would more, I think, apply
Applied
to
to
the
the
athletics
athletics
test than it
test.
is
That's fine.
like I am boldly looking out in the horizon.
all right.
It's just an attitude, Jeff. It's
Yeah,
the
it's
attitude.
just all it is. That's some
All right.
bold flavor.
I'm gonna take a audience dice for that. And let's see.
Sure.
Oh no. Gosh,
dear.
man. It's an awful roll. I didn't even get half of what I needed.
You climb up, and you're looking around, and you can see, a fairly significant distance actually as you climb up. You look westward, kind of up the hills a bit to a point, obviously, because the hills eventually climb much higher than the top of this tree. You look southward, towards the lake a bit more. You can kind of see what looks like, it's hard to tell with the swirling mist, especially that seems isolated more around sort of the center bits of the lake as opposed to the shore as much during the hot parts of the day. You can see what looks like scattered islands here and there, occasional trees or ruins. You can't quite make out exactly what you're seeing at this distance. Boy, it would be great to have a spyglass. And then you kind of turn your attention northward, and it's just forest. You don't see signs of plumes of smoke for chimneys. It is, hot parts of the it's hotter parts. It's springtime, but you don't see any signs of homes, of a village, of the traditional signifiers of this at all. Okay, who's next? As you climb down, you wasted everyone's time. Renio's climbing trees again.
Yep.
Wait, what do you got?
I've got craft.
Crafting a spyglass.
I've got with my knowledge in craft, I'm gonna look for marks or signs of civilization that could possibly lead me to where this is.
I know what
How
a
much
fence
can we
looks
game
like.
this system?
Or just a regular scan.
I think a scan makes more sense, but what I'll say is roll a craft. Oh gosh, you're looking maybe signs for similar to what Gilly was looking for, signs of kind of that the land's been worked. Maybe not necessarily for farmland, but maybe signs of docks or
Felling timber, maybe.
Yeah, felled timber, sure. Roll a craft test, and if you succeed, you'll take a bonus die on your scan test. If not, you can still roll scan.
Sure. Here's my craft.
Extraordinary.
Yeah. You actually find what looks like a fairly interesting location as kind of on the western side of like the northwestern side of the lake itself. The coast of the lake is very erratic. Like there's ridges, there's hills, there's coves, there's these blind coves. Some of it there's like trees that are kind of blanketing the shore, so you can't really kind of get down to what looks like the water. You're pretty sure in some cases the lake kind of dips underneath the ridgeline, and so it's not like you're just walking along this nice, beautiful like beach line. It's much more irregular, especially along the western edge. But you do find what looks like a dock. You can see that the dock is in poor shape. You can tell from your kind of craftsmanship here that there's no, it doesn't seem like it's had much upkeep of late. In fact, you do see some of the planks have fallen and have sunken into the water. You actually even see a sunken boat. It's not a very big boat. It's just sort of like a small rowboat. And as you're kind of standing atop this, this outcropping of rock, as you're looking down and you see it, you realize as you hop down that you weren't standing on regular stone, but rather a fairly large, like 20 feet tall, maybe 15 feet tall stone statue that has been fallen and broken. You actually see what looks like the contours of a face. And when you look around at some of the other rock in the area, stone, some of it in the water, some of it on the shore, you see what looks like this was once these were carvings, like fairly massive and impressive carvings that have since fallen to ruin and have cracked and broken and split here and there. Hard to distinguish who exactly it is. It's certainly, certainly human, right? Certainly people of men. You don't see any signatures of kind of elven variety here, but you're able to, at least in your mind, kind of note where a dock on the western side has been. Go ahead and roll that scan test to see if you can maybe find some tracks or some signs of where this might lead to. Okay.
Just success.
Okay. Yes, you are able to find what looks like rutted ground that you can tell just by looking at it that it looks like it's been attempted to be swept away, as if like someone like regularly kind of clogs this up and muddies up the ground to make it look like, no one's been here. But you do see what looks like the signs of a cart leading upwards and northwest into the hills in a way. So that is your first success on turn 3.
Our first sign. We grow near.
How many
Right.
successes do we need?
6.
Do we only have 6 turns to get it?
So basically, this is more along the lines like it doesn't give me a time limit. So it's kind of open ended, but the quicker it takes the quicker it's done. Much like other games, there's clocks and things that could potentially happen if it takes you a little bit longer. And
Gotcha.
the longer you're out here, the more likelihood you're going to run into something dangerous. So.
Ugh, okay.
If we found tracks from a cart, would I be able to use awareness to see if there's any sort of movement coming through that path? Maybe leading
Okay.
to or from a village?
Okay, so you want to essentially look for ways to continue tracking that path. Okay. Awareness is really for danger. Like you're supposed to use that as kind of like an alertness, like looking around for the potential signs of danger. Scan is more.
Well, then I
about-
can use explore.
Hunting would also be a good one to use here too, since you're this little tracks.
I can do hunting. It's the same as explore for me.
Let's do hunting then. Sounds good.
Yep.
Yeah, you.
I'm a vegetarian. Did I throw that out there?
So you spend, a not insignificant amount of hours in the latter parts of the day trying to catch up on, trying to almost follow the foundation that Floy established in terms of like he found these tracks that are kind of leading up towards the hills in some way. There's no clear path, but it also seems like someone was attempting intentionally to obscure some of the ruts of whatever this wagon or cart might have been. You try to look around for any signs of, you take a larger, like kind of broader radius looking around some of the hills and some of the tree line, and you're unable to find anything. And you scour the hills for hours to the point where it dawns on you that it's actually dark. And
I imagine the whole time Aurenial was like looking at the tracks too, saying like, they probably go this way. And then Erebon's like, no, they definitely go this way.
And meanwhile, Floy has set up a fire. Gilly comes trudging back with Root covered in mud as you are somewhere on the western side of the shore as a day has passed and you have sadly only 1 success off 4 turns. This is the
That's
worst skill endeavor I think
crazy.
you've ever done.
It is.
Oh,
But thank
you,
you.
Twitch.
Yes, so we have some extra D6s from the audience, so we should use them and do
Sure.
better tomorrow.
Yes.
Yep. Should indeed. Okay. So you camp out. Does anyone try to fish the lake?
No.
You saw my hunting.
Can Aurenial give it a shot? It's sort of like just having like the pointy stick spearing kind of a attempt.
I would offer a soft warning that when water is that still, it should not be disturbed. But I wouldn't stop her if she really wants to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Gilly will like sidle up to Floy and be like, so you remember when you got your wound and the nameless thing attacked us? And there were those like zombie-like things. That water was really still too. Do you think there's some of those in this one? Because I did not think about that before we decided that we were going to come here.
If they are there, I've got my axe.
Okay, but the axe, it did stuff, but like we need more light if that's going to happen.
If we're by the fire, it should be fine.
Ugh. And like Gilly's still just like not super sold on it.
As you're camping near this pier, near these fallen statues crumbled into earth, you've got the fire going. Maybe 1 or 2 of you grabbed a fish from the lake. The mist sweeps in, covering the lake to the point where you can't see very far out. You look up, it's a very starry sky. Cloud cover seems to obscure some of those stars, and the moon itself. But the sounds sort of to the north and west, you hear this echoing of wolves. One to the north of you, then suddenly one to the west. And over the span of a good hour, you hear this constantly happening as if they're communicating, and they're getting closer and closer, louder and louder. Instinctively, we'll say Aurinial. It sounds like as the most sort of rugged woodsman type. You would probably get the sense that they're like closing in on prey. Are you the prey? You're not sure, but it sounds like it, and they're getting closer and closer to you. What do you all want to do?
Rennie will just sort of tap everyone and just say, I think we should have weapons at the ready. Maybe they are hunting something else, but just in case, we should be ready.
I'll heed that warning and take arms.
Bow
Gilly
is
will
out.
get her bow
Same.
out.
Same.
Okay. So you have your weapons out. You're doing anything in addition to that? So like any other action other than drawing weapons?
Gilly will ask, can someone help boost me up into this tree?
Of course.
Gilly, go ahead and roll athletics test. Arenial, are you spending a hope to boost her?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead, do that.
Thank you.
Oh, that's a lot of ones.
Failure. That's a lot of ones.
Wow.
I
Remember,
keep
we
trying
have
to
extra
kind of-
D6s.
Yeah, you keep trying to like get her up, but every time you grab, a branch, it just kind of cracks. You get a couple feet up, and then it snaps, and you go, kind of slamming down on top.
Why is this tree so wimpy? Like, I give up. Let's.
Okay, what else are you all doing? As again, they sound like they're getting closer and closer and closer.
You said it's misty, right? So it's pretty hard to see.
It's definitely hard to see. Not impossible, but it's definitely hard to see. Yeah.
Can Rennie try to do a athletics to try to
Of course.
get up and pull Gilly up?
Of course. Yes.
Right. I am going to use one of our audience dice. That's better. Success.
Okay. So yeah, you climb up. You go ahead and you bring her up with you, and the two of you are now kind of climbing up this tree. Thank you, Farkadev. Very kind.
Thank you.
You have more. Okay, so in terms of those of you who are underground now, Erebon, Floy, are you doing anything?
I would like to stealth and just find like a even more shadowy place to kind of hang out in for a bit.
Okay, roll that stealth test then. And then
I'll
Floy.
stealth as well, though.
Okay.
I'll use an audience die as well.
All right, got it. Long, you want one?
No, it's okay. Gandalf.
Gandalf. All right, so
Who
that
had the
succeeds.
blue?
Sorry, I'm just double checking.
That's
something.
long with the blue. I'm pink.
Getting a weird error on my end. It's not popping up.
Yeah,
here.
he had a Gandalf and an Eye of Sauron.
Yeah. I saw that. I was just like, oh,
But it was. I assume it was favored, right?
Yeah.
So you're probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The number of times in our like role playing career that like Long and I have had a conversation about like, you want to do anything with that stealth? And Long saying no. Like I have a little like I feel like we've had a conversation like this before.
Okay. I think that works. Okay, so you're stealthing in the brush there, Erebon. Both Gilly and Aurinial are up in the trees. Floy, you join Erebon kind of as like this stealthy area. And so the two of you are in bushes. The rest of you are up in the trees. Every one of you can make an awareness test. As you hear the sounds of crunching.
Anybody want a dice?
crunching leaves and dirt and gravel.
I'm gonna take one.
Sounds of snarls.
I also got
Fail.
a Gandalf and a Sauron.
Extraordinary. Okay.
Erebon
Great.
and Iriniel and Gilly see this, but Floy does not. You see moving down from the hills one shadow, very large, from kind of the northwestern hills, begins to descend the slope very stealthily in its own right, to the point where looking the first sight of it, Erebon, you don't even see it really. And then Gilly, you're the first. And you feel like this little shiver kind of go down your spine as you look at what is this black-furred, large, wolf-like beast, similar to the one that you slayed on the slopes of Mount Grom. But this one is enormous. Like a good twice the size of that large kind of alpha of that pack. Huge, broad shoulders of some kind. It's definitely 3 times the size of a decent hound. And we're talking probably taller than you if you were to stand up next to it, maybe even more. This huge bulbous is the wrong word, but kind of this huge ridge along its back where the haunches kind of stick up. And you catch just a tiny flicker of moonlight reflect in its eyes. And you hear the snarl. And then Iriniel, as you're watching as well, you see a second one of these begin to emerge from the darkness to the southwest, slowly skirting down the hills. When they get very, very close to the camp, I don't think anyone said you doused the fire. Is that correct? Okay.
Correct.
Did not douse it.
Erebon, once they get to this sort of edge of the firelight, you see both of these creatures. Very, very large. They are wolves of some kind, but they are larger than any wolves you've ever seen before. Any of you have ever seen before. Floy, the mist is just kind of getting in your eyes. You're having trouble, but eventually if you're near Erebon can like kind of nudge you and point them out, as you can see kind of reflecting. They're skirting around the edge of the camp, sniffing. And like you hear kind of a small growl emit from them as they like kind of go through your like some of your packs here and there. You see them as they kind of toss it around a bit. Any of you want to?
They can have whatever they want. I'm staying in the bush.
Okay. And Floyd, these are bigger than you. You're a dwarf, you're sturdy. You can tell these things are 2-3 times your size. Enormous.
Yeah, I'll observe them for a bit, see if they just leave of their own volition.
Okay.
Jeff, I feel like you were trying to challenge him there.
What, me?
You framed it like
said,
a warning, but you're talking to Floy.
If I wanted to bait Floy, I would say, looks like they're all wearing like these beautiful gold chains.
Yeah,
Just dangling these collars, That's what I would say.
I'd say that's probably about worth 6 treasure.
Yeah, I feel like that could potentially get you to the next tier of richness.
Yeah.
So you see them as you're observing. Iriniel, Gilly, of course, you can do something if you want. But right now it looks like neither your dwarven or elven friends are moving at all. No one's engaged. It doesn't look to any of you that they seem to have kind of noticed. Looks like they're struggling to sort of sniff around. The wind kind of kicks up, the mist comes in, and you kind of see this sense of snarling, almost like they're communicating with one another. This like kind of snarl, and one of them begins to descend down the hill towards the edge of a ridge overlooking the lake below. Kind of howls out into the water one more time. And then they bolt and run back into the darkness. How long do you wait?
Exactly my plan.
How long do you wait before coming back up?
Are they still howling? I want to definitely not hear howls. You know,
10
at
minutes,
least another
20 minutes go by. You hear them continuing to do that sort of call back and forth with one another, but they're getting further and further away.
Better yet, I'll do my elvish meditation and I'll stay in this bush until someone else comes out.
Until next week. Until I grow a beard. There's only been one of us.
Yeah, I'll just step out after they're gone for a few minutes.
Okay. Gilly, Iriniel, do you come down from the tree?
Gilly is clinging to this tree.
Yeah, I would say it'd be at least a half hour before, because I imagine kind of Iriniel was on, kind of one branch, and Gilly was maybe like a branch higher, and Iriniel will just kind of look up to Gilly and just sort of just shrug, and should we get back down?
I mean, yeah. We could stay up here for tonight,
Okay. So eventually, time continues to pass, but because you do not feel safe, because you do not feel secure, you do not regain any fatigue. It is not a restful night for anyone.
Yep.
As the howls continue to sort of harass and hound you off in the hills. But the sun does eventually come up, but before it, this thick, sort of pea soup thickness of mist just comes wafting through. When your eyes open in the morning, you can't even see each other. The fire has dwindled, but there's still a bit of flame, and if not for that, you really couldn't get anything. But the morning eventually continues. You get food. You no longer hear the sounds of the howls in the distance. The sun begins to grow into the sky even further. The mist gets burned off to the point where everything's visible once more. You see the statues broken along the side of the lake here. You see periodically like a very faint current come and slap against the poles sticking up out of the dock. And you have another day to continue your search for this missing village.
Iriniel wants to get a closer look at the statue. I don't know if that's necessarily part of the skill stuff, but
Okay, what do you want to do?
Just take a closer look at kind of what it seems to be a statue of. Materials, anything like that.
It's stone of some kind, probably local, whatever is up in the hills, more than likely. It doesn't seem like any special, like grandiose, polished, it's rough stone, but it's well hewn. Very impressive craftsmanship, Floy. You can probably attest to that. You do see that the most intact one of these statues is of a woman. Kind of hooded. There's like kind of a hood over top of her head. You can't actually necessarily see any ears behind that hood, but the face itself doesn't have the kind of sharp and delicate features so common of elves. It does seem to have more of the sort of the strong jawline and cheekbones of a human. And you do see like a broken half face of a man, again, roughly the same size, collapsed a few steps from this. There's also more of the debris out in the water that seems to be kind of part of them. They both looked like they were likely quite tall, maybe 15 feet in height, something like that. There might have been some kind of pedestal that they were sitting on to help exaggerate that height a bit. But that's what you see.
Would anyone know what beasts we saw last night? What they were?
Every one of you would be able to know that they were some kind of warg or wolf, but probably bigger than any that you've seen prior. Sorry, it's a little too loud on the wind there.
So, if I'm would Iriniel be able to, look under the water?
Sure. What are you trying to do? Like, what's your goal?
Just because some of the statues are in the water, so I'm just trying to see if there's anything else that's obstructed from view.
Yeah, you would be able to discern that at some point it looks like, and you know this from your history, Gilly would be able to sort of add this, that this lake was flooded years back. kind of during the fell winter, where the water rose much higher, and the city of Anuminas was not built below water. It's flooded now, but it hasn't always been. And more than likely, the water line itself rose at some point, and likely these statues were built and they were erected further down the sort of slope of this lake, and so the water rose so much that it kind of covered them at this point. At least parts of them is likely what's going on here. Is all it really is. Now, you can tell by looking at the stonework and then looking at this dock that these are two vastly different levels of craftsmanship. One of them seems, the stone looks old, and it looks, with a level of expertise that, you've seen reserved for some of the elvish ruins you've come across, or, the dwarven devices that you've seen Floy wield. This dock itself seems, it's certainly workmanlike. It's functional, it's fine, but it's no more grandiose than a wagon built by Brelanders, is what you're seeing. So you can distinguish that this dock is very recent in terms of at least maybe a couple of years or so old, whereas these stone statues are, in age maybe, or at least 1,000 years plus, something like that. Okay. Skill endeavor. How are we trying to find the village today?
How do we do better than yesterday?
You all have seen my hunting abilities, so if you guys want to go first, I'd be happy to pull up the rear.
Yeah, I mean, I can try a hunt and see if can find anything from this place. So I can do a hunt. I'm gonna take 2 audience dice.
Wow, greedy much?
We've gotta get some 6. We're all in this together.
Drop that really fast there. All right.
Nice. Good job.
Got a success.
So
open for a little more. But...
in the morning light, maybe a little bit more focused now, knowing that if you don't hurry, you might be devoured in the middle of the night by these giant wolves. You kind of travel back over the ground that Erebon was looking over in the hills, and that Floy had found the initial cart ruts, and that even you yourself had kind of looked over top of when Erebon was kind of scanning. But you dedicate much more time to this, hours in the morning, as you're just sort of doing this very slow, concentrically outward expanding search for more and more and more. But eventually you do find what looks like scattered tracks, not tracks as in on the ground, but signs that someone has passed through. A snap in what looks like a branch of a low-hanging bush, what looks like slightly more trudged ground, sections of flattened earth that seems to have been just too perfectly disheveled, as if someone tried to cover it. It's that type of thing that you're discovering, and not like footprints or actual more wagon ruts or anything like that. Eventually, you do actually come to a sort of this section of the hills a bit to the north, as that's where these tracks tend to lead you up the hill, and then you start veering northward. You find this dense forested area, and you can see that there are traps that have been set, like hunting traps, like these mechanical rusted sort of wooden, and it looks like, you're not sure if it's bone or stone that's being used as like the teeth of this sort of wooden trap that's been laying down with some leaves and brush and debris over top of it. Some of those traps you can see are filled like with like crushed game that has just sort of been efficiently and quickly slaughtered. Like, no, it's not like sort of in this inhumane, terrible way. And you get a sense that you're sort of moving in the direction of where civilization might be, kind of northward along sort of this forested hill line.
This way, everyone. This is how they're... Gilly, we didn't necessarily find where they get their farming from, but I think we found where they get their meat from.
Yeah. Could Gilly do like an awareness roll to like make sure we don't step in any more traps as we continue to move forward through this?
Yeah, and I think what that'll do is that's really just going to. I don't think that's going to progress the search.
The
That's just
endeavor,
going to
but
avoid.
just make sure we don't.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine. Like you can roll
Okay.
that for sure, and that'll keep. So
Would you like a die?
what we'll say is if anyone
this
fails.
isn't part of the endeavor.
Yeah, what I'll say is if anyone fails, the failure penalty or whatever I come up with isn't going to be like stepping into a trap. It'll be something else.
Still failed.
Something
Now
much,
it's gonna
much
be
worse.
Someone stepping into the trap. Broken ankles, split shins. Oh, baby, I can't wait to eat them ponies. All right.
I am not built to help with this kind of stuff.
Sorry. Sorry. Okay. That doesn't count towards the turn, though. That's just something else. All right. Who wants to contribute to the search now? You've picked up, sort of more hints of where to go.
Is it okay just to repeat scan, or is that not allowed?
Just describe, just flavor. Describe how you're doing
Okay.
something slightly differently, something like that.
Yeah, I'll just keep on scanning. I'll maybe like circle around a bit to look for openings in the hills, in the grove. Just like different angles that can't get good vision of.
Okay. You do notice there's a very dense forest thicket that you've kind of come up to the edge of. So you might be scanning around looking for signs of paths through it, as opposed to having to go all the way around it, which would take a much longer time. So we'll say something like that. Go ahead and roll scan.
Okay.
Okay.
Extraordinary.
There we go. You guys haven't had one of those extra successes for a while. So was that how many do you have total? I always forget.
Just 2d6.
So the
3
normal
total.
success, and then 3 total. That
it's
puts you
3.
at 5 successes. You are one
We
away.
just need one more.
All right.
You might be able to get there today and not have to spend potentially another night out in the wild.
Oh,
with these
please.
wolves
Please,
looking
please.
for you. Sure. So
Not
yes,
if you're relying on Erebon.
So as Eryniel finds this path and the remnants of these tracks moving forward, as if people have passed through here, and then you find, Eryniel, these signs of someone has been laying traps in this area as if to catch game. And you know from Gilly's research and from talking to Talendil and Marimbem that these people live off the earth. They live from hunting the hills and the forests, and they live from fishing the lake. It would make perfect sense. And some of these traps were recent too. It makes perfect sense that these are likely traps that are laid by the people who inhabit these hills. Floy, at the edge of this dense thicket that Eryniel leads you all to, you're looking around for any kind of way through, and it is not an easy task, in fact, as more than once you enter into the thicket where you think you found a path, only to loop back around and find yourself having traveled for 15 minutes only to move a total of 10 feet a little bit further kind of westward or southward. And it takes a bit of time before you're able to locate some thinner areas, and you're scraping yourself as you go, as there's brambles and really thick vegetation, roots of these old ancient trees, gnarled and difficult to traverse. You at one point even see, as you kind of hop over what looks like this very dangerous looking thicket that likely, if you would have just flopped in, could have scraped you considerably, you actually catch sight of a large black bear very slowly and carefully moving across what is a far more hollowed out area of forest. Now, bears are not particularly common, especially in this area. And so seeing one is a bit of a sight. But not only that, as you were moving forward and nearly stumbled through, had you failed that roll, perhaps you might have alerted said bear. But you're able to quickly kind of hunker down behind kind of a hollowed out fallen tree, and you watch as a handful of cubs are trailing behind it. This is like some kind of large mother bear, as it just very carefully and quietly kind of just moves from one side of this forest opening to another. And as your eyes are watching it, you notice at the briefest moment, as you come back, you see on the other side of this open opened area in between, at the center of this really dense outer thicket, you see a flickering of leaves and someone dart and run northward. Now, you're a ways away, so it's going to be hard to follow, but this is the first time you've seen anyone here, and you caught sight of somebody. They were in furs. You couldn't quite make them out too much, but you see them, and they just dart northward. And you know you're kind of on the right path, and you found a way through this thick, heavy, forested area, and you don't have to circumvent and go all the way around.
We're getting closer. I think I saw someone.
Okay. Time for one more. We got one more for today before night falls.
Don't we have 2 more? Because I don't think Erebon's done.
I have not done one today. No.
Well, how many of you have done one? I know Aurenial did. Aurenial succeeded. Oh, yeah, only 2 have done. Aurenial went first and then Floy. So, yeah, there's 2 more. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's just my rules, by the way. That's not like a thing. That's just a...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gil, can I do like a riddle roll to like take all this information that we've collected and just kind of like
try to use that to kind of piece together how
Cool.
they might be hiding.
Triangulate like where they might be. Yeah.
Gilly gets down in the ground, spreads some dirt, drops some rocks, and starts moving. You start seeing.
Looks a lot like Aurenial's battle check.
Absolutely, Gilly. I think riddle would make sense here from what you've learned so far, what you've observed, what you've pieced together. Maybe you could deduce where they might be.
Cool. Can I take a dice, Mo?
Of course.
Oh my god. I'm only rolling 1s, 2s, and 3s today.
Wow.
You follow Floy's advice. You know, you wait for the full crossing of this bear. You're not even sure if it's possible, Floy, that the person that you saw might have been hunting the bear, might not have been, or maybe was like you and was alerted to it and was just staying quiet until they could bolt. You're confident that they saw you, though, and they ran, and that's probably why they ran. You get the group together, you start moving through this open clearing. It's very dark underneath here as the canopy of trees is fairly heavy, but there's still these little rays of light that come in. As the day's kind of progressing, you're kind of getting into the evening hours. You can see like the mist is actually coming in here too, like snaking through some of these trees. Gilly, you kind of piece it together. You think that maybe they probably use the shelter of the trees at some point. They have to. Like, you don't necessarily want to just be exposed to the elements all the time. And so you continue to travel. The ground is undulating. And as you're moving forward, Gilly, and you're trying to like kind of point this way and that, you take a misstep and you suddenly slide down this long, surprisingly smooth hill. Whereas most everything you've seen thus far has been this like rocky terrain. It's got this strange sort of smoothness to it. And when you kind of slam down at the ground, take a point of fatigue as it's exhausting, like this tumble, and you smack down. You can see like next to you there's like this debris kind of around this bottom of this deep, dark gulch to the point where you can't even really see the sun anymore. It's so far up. The overhang of those tall trees at the very top of that slope are kind of blocking any of the western sunlight. But you don't really catch any signs of the person who you're chasing. You don't catch any signs of like a path. You are, however, in the middle of this gulch. You see this slope and you look down and it looks like there's these stones that are piled up, these small stones that are piled up and cascade and kind of discarded in different ways. You think it might have been some kind of hut or some kind of building that maybe like the earth moved. There was like a mudslide or something that happened, and that likely accounted for the smoothness and kind of everything collapsed downward. You know you're in the right area, but you knew that already with Floy and Aurenial, and this doesn't necessarily give you any more information to work on. But there is still time for one more roll before the night completely falls. And it's
How many
all
audience dice do we have left?
on Erebon?
We have 7.
So I'm going to use 7 audience. No.
Ones for days. But that would still probably be enough if you add up all the ones.
I could do explore, right? Where I'm just
Absolutely. Nothing wrong with that at all.
following the hills and the tree line, and if we just go long enough, we'll find something. And I will use 2 audience dice.
I was
Rolled a
watching the
1 on
D12
that. Yeah.
flop over to the 1. I'm like, oh no.
It would have been a failure without those audience dice. So thank you, audience.
Yes.
Thank you
definitely.
very much.
Okay. You've been traveling for, you're probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 miles north of the shore of the lake as you continue to push forward. You climb up the other side of the gulch that, after helping kind of Gilly get up here, you reach the other side of the ridge, and you can see that another one of these dense forests extends outward to the north and to the east. The hills rise up to the west. The forests, the trees themselves, tall, crooked, angular in some ways, but they become sparser and sparser the further up the hills you go. But you kind of catch on a little bit to what Gilly is sort of maybe kind of pointed out, this notion that this looked almost like stone bricks. They weren't properly hewn, but you can tell that no one collects those. Like, those don't appear loose like that in nature, like you have to collect these things. And the fact that they were just sort of stacked up together, either for an abode or for a cairn, like the one that you all discovered on the road to Fornost, kind of gives you this idea that maybe you're in sort of the right area. You push forward, and again you find another one of these very, very dense thickets.
Totally knew what I was doing. Exactly.
To the point where it dawns on you at a certain point as you're pushing through, arms kind of getting scraped by this. It starts to maybe dawns on you that maybe, as you're looking at some of this thicket, that it's intentional. Like, did they plant this? Did they sort of compose this? And as that thought finishes, Erebon, you push through to the other side of this open clearing. Gilly, Floy, Auriniel, you follow, and you see these tall, ancient trees, just vertical right up, like just as straight as an arrow into the sky. You see in front of you a fire, bits of torchlight. You see these scattered stone huts. You see a stream coursing through it. This is definitely some kind of hamlet, some kind of village. To call it a village is almost maybe overstating it, right? It's not entirely that grandiose, right? It's very simple, hamlet itself. You do see, now that you're here, these tiny little bits of smoke wafting up from some kind of central fire and from what looks like chimneys built into these stacked stoned huts. But it seems to kind of get dispersed. No fire is too large, and it gets dispersed over by the time it hits the canopy overhead. You notice too, as you're kind of stepping forward, as people begin to move around you, that there are platforms here and there on some of the trees, not unlike some of your elvish brethren on the eastern sides of the Misty Mountains and the Mirkwood. As you can see, they probably take some sort of shelter up in here, and you see figures looking down at you. They have what looks like these crude hunting bows. As you all close in, you can see there's these people who begin to follow around. They have these sort of sunken eyes in like these pools of sort of black shadow, not makeup, just sort of tiredness, like rings into the eyes themselves. There's a sallowness and a gauntness to their faces, a paleness, despite the fact that they live effectively in the wild outside. They all kind of stare at you with a great deal of mistrust that is not at all hidden. They are perfectly happy to show this to you. You notice that there are multiple spotters around you. People are kind of beginning to sort of close around. You start kind of adding up the figures that are beginning to pool. There's no proper entrance to a village, like walking through the gates of Bree, but rather this is sort of hidden behind this makeshift thicket. As you all kind of get closer and closer, you see a group begin to break off, move towards you. While you're slowly beginning to, there's other groups that are kind of flanking around, all of them kind of covered in furs, rough clothing. None of them look like, sewn. It all looks like animal furs, like they're truly living off the land to some degree. And all of those buildings that you see, those little huts, are shaped in sort of composed of the same kind of stacked stone that you saw, Gilly, when you slipped down the ridge. The group approaches you. You can see there's two figures that kind of lead that pack. One looks to be a tall man, head kind of towering over the others. And despite the appearance of everybody else, this rough fur, you can tell that there's a hardiness to it all and a crudeness in some way. You can see a surprisingly well-kept beard. The other is this very broad-shouldered woman. She's not short by any stretch, but he is decently a head taller. But you can see that her shoulders kind of sag at these sort of regular intervals, and it almost like she's affecting some kind of effort to sort of stand with kind of more proper posture. She has dark braid weaving down her right side, and it's kind of adorned with feathers and what looks like these smooth rocks, maybe from the shores of the lake. Others are starting to flank around you. They all have this ashy complexion. Like there's a grayness to them, like a grayness, like their face is sort of saturated in some way. It's the woman with the braid who speaks when you approach. She says, looking at all of you, focusing on Erebon, eyes flickering towards Iriniel. She looks towards Gilly and Floy with a touch of confusion. She says, "You are outsiders, and you are not welcome here. Leave now, and we will part with indifference. Linger, and we cannot extend a similar promise."
We mean no intrusion, but we have traveled for some time. Perhaps we could at least discuss.
You see that woman kind of exchanges a glance with the man standing next to her. There's like a little bit of talk, like as people begin to murmur in the crowd around. And just as it looks like as she's about to talk again, you hear like this cackle of a laugh. Betrayal! And like to the side, there's like one of the groups of onlookers begins to sort of shove, and you see moving up is this crone-like woman. She's got this heavy staff. You can see these furs are like tied to the very top. Betrayal! She steps out in front of these two figures, gets right up, like maybe 3-4 feet away from you all, and she's looking, her one eye is like open wide, the other kind of crunched down. She's got this wrinkly looking face. You can see age spots kind of covering her. Betrayal journeys with these travelers. Betrayal has been brought to her village. And she's like looking very carefully. She sniffs the air and she looks over at Floy, at the dwarf. It wraps itself around the dwarf like a fresh set of furs. I have seen it. In the trails, I have seen it in my dreams. They bring the doom of Escadale. And you can see like everyone around. Like there's panic begins to set, and people begin to start drawing weapons at that point. You look over and you can see like the two that sort of were leading the pack. The woman who was talking, she has this very troubled look on her face. What are you all doing? As you can see the crowd around is beginning to kind of close in, weapons are out. And this woman in front, this old kind of crone-like woman. What do you all do?
Do we give them Floy? I mean,
No.
No,
It's clearly I'm not welcome at the moment, so maybe I'll back off for now.
You take a couple steps back, Floy, and you feel yourself bump into somebody. And you look behind you, and there is another group that have very quietly, very stealthily, have stepped up, and you all are surrounded, outnumbered significantly. All of them have weapons. Now, there are weapons. You don't see any swords or anything like that. You see, like, spears with some stone heads, and you see bows and things, and it looks like some crude knives here and there. They certainly don't have the weapons that you all are carrying. And they're all wearing furs and leathers and things like that. But they do seem like there's something about them. There's a gauntness to them, but also sort of this fierceness that they're pushing through. As you bump into somebody and you hear the voice say, "Not so fast, dwarf. If Gorlis says you'll bring doom to us, we shall bring it to you first." And you feel the point of a spear in your back.
Gilly starts apologizing. We did not mean to bring betrayal here. We really just wanted to have some conversations with you all. My name's Gilly Kettlegrass. It's
Quiet,
a pleasure
child.
to meet you.
Enough. And she looks, this is the braided woman who looks now to Reniel. Please make sure your child speaks only when spoken to. Now.
she is no child. She is an adult as I am.
And you can see that she's like, as she looks like at you, like there's like a little bit of a twitch as you start talking, Arenial. Like she's not happy with the fact that you're interrupting her. But go ahead.
She is an adult as I am. We have, as was mentioned, we have traveled quite a way in order to have a conversation with you. We will, and Arenial will kind of put her weapons down, say we did not come to fight with you. We came to discuss happenings in the world and happenings here in this area. And so you'll see her, she'll put down her bow and arrows and her short sword.
The woman with the braid will speak up. A sense of irritation kind of washing over her face, but she's doing it. You can tell she's doing a decent job of trying to be sort of like stately and diplomatic in front of like the group here. And she will say, "We care not here for the affairs of outsiders, Ranger of the North. We are aware of who, or at least what, you are. You are not the first to come to our village. Although I do wish you would be the last. Your kind has brought your affairs to our steps too often, and with it, sorrow soon followed." And then as she says that, the crone like shouts out, "Not sorrow! Doom! Doom has breached our sacred trees, our sacred thicket. Within a span of moons, Escadale will be no more." And she's just like cackling as the groups slowly get closer. And we're going to stop there for this week. And we're going to end on you all being devoured by these
Wait, no.
These token hillbillies. It's gonna be great.
Nice.
Okay.
Where's our C3PO that's going to pretend to be a guy?
So we hit. We got to get. I'm trying to get us back to like doing the 2 hour, as opposed to doing. I can't handle the 3 hours anymore. I can't. It's too much. Oh boy.
It's a 2-week cliffhanger, though.
Yes, this is a 2-week, as Ashley would say, cliffy. That will come back to in 2 weeks. Oh boy, I love our pre-show Zooms chats. Okay, yeah, we are actually off. No wondering next Saturday. Our good friend Long has to go to jail for like 9 days or something like that. What was it you did again? Can't remember what it.
They offered him community service, but he's like,
Yes.
nah.
Yeah. So So, I mean, we could play without him, but that means that Floyd just gets knocked out and you have to fight like 24 villagers
No.
without your
I'll
best
see if there's
offensive
internet in my
weapon.
cell. Maybe they'll let me play.
But yeah, we are off. We are off of One Ring for 2 weeks. We'll be back. I think we're off. We're also off on Friday next week too for Traveler. We might do something in Traveler's Place. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully we're starting a new game over on Grim and Perilous next Saturday, as Steven and I and a few others are going to be trying out some Heart, so you can kind of check that out. That's twitch.tv/Grim and Perilous Plays. So I think that's what we're doing on Saturday. Let's see, Monday, Melissa and I will be playing some Deadlands, as we have now Savage Mondays. Every Monday we're playing a Savage World game. One Monday it'll be Deadlands, another game will be Holler, so we'll kind of alternate between that here and there. Steven, you got anything going on now that you've finished Darkest House?
No, my schedule's pretty clear. I do a Shadowrun, Steam Steal and Murder every other Sunday. That's
Should be
next
Sunday.
week would be the 24th.
Yep.
And Heart starting up. Other than that, One Ring.
Okay, right on. So yeah, that's it for us. You all found the village. Congratulations. I didn't think you
It
realized
was hard.
Wargs and
It was
yes.
surprisingly difficult. I did not think it was going to take that long. Normally, you all like just breeze through skill endeavors without any issue, especially when you have like the
Yeah.
audience points to help
Such
out.
bad
but-
rolls. So many ones and twos
Yeah.
and threes.
Erebon was ready to just go home. I don't know about the rest of you. He's like, well, it doesn't exist.
But we made it, and we'll explore a little bit more of this village next time. So we're queuing up a raid to our friends over at Dragons in the Dining Room. So follow that raid. We're going to get out of here. Thank you for everyone who hung out tonight. Thank you for those of you who threw out some bits. They will carry over to the next session, help out the players, but we will be back in 2 weeks to find out just what the hell's going on in this village. So good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Fake village, yeah.